Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 13, Episode 19. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Glad you guys are back with us here for this Friday show, the last podcast before the Steelers' Week 1 regular season gets underway Sunday afternoon against the Cincinnati Bengals. NFL season kicking off last night with the Buffalo Bills blowing out the LA Rams. 31-10. So, NFL season underway. Dave, how you doing?
Boy, yeah, I'm very excited. Obviously, first full weekend of the NFL season finally upon us. So it looks like another great weekend of college football coming. So, yeah, I can't wait to look. We got a busy show here today. We got Paul Dehner Jr. back on to talk about the game against the Bengals on Sunday. You and I have got to talk about kind of our thoughts on the 2022 Steelers and the season as a whole. So, yeah, it's time to get after it, Alex.
Yeah, and we'll give our season predictions, which is everyone knows my favorite thing to do. But I think I know which way. I think we're holding hands this year, Dave. I'm pretty sure in terms of our thoughts on the year, but we'll do that later in the show. Let's start with talking about the Steelers injury report, and it looked okay on, Wednesday, with just Deontay Johnson listed. New names added yesterday. The one is not one to worry about, but Chukwuma Okorafor missed Thursday's practice with a back injury. Deontay Johnson continues to be limited. Marcus Allen did progress from limited to full, so he should play after dealing with that hamstring injury suffered during training camp. Kim Hayward did not practice yesterday due to a coach's decision, so he'll be good to go for the weekend. So the big names to watch here are Johnson and Okorafor. Dave, we talk about, the lack of tackle depth and their plan behind their starters, and the starters, especially Dan Moore, have their own question marks. Now you may have that depth tested immediately, which to me is a scary thought to begin the year.
Yeah. Did you say there, when you talked about injuries, there's not – you were referencing the Hayward one is not
right
one.
As the additional one that should not be concerning to anybody.
Okay, good. Look, you're Chukwuma Okorafor. You if there's one guy that you can't be without, I think on Sunday against the Bengals, it's definitely him. And it was, I guess, a little bit, or most definitely was a little bit out of the blue with that back injury. Maybe just strained something there. But even if he returns now and practices on Friday and plays on Sunday, the notion that back's not 100% going into week 1 of the season doesn't give you a warm look. You didn't have a warm and fuzzy feeling about these tackles to begin with. And now you potentially go into week 1, and here's the hope, and they have him, at least 80% version of him. But that's not ideal. And as we talked about, leading up to obviously this show, it's hard to vision that these starting 5, as is right now for the Steelers, will play, each play 95% of the snaps individually throughout the season. And here we are already in, first Friday of week 1, wondering whether or not this team will have their starting right tackle in Chukwuma Okorafor. So going to be interesting to see that play out the rest of the weekend here. But that is concerning, as is the fact that, look, does anybody really know what's going to happen with Deontay Johnson at this point? I know there's optimism, at least, to hear it come out of Matt Canada's mouth on Thursday, that they're optimistic that Johnson will play, but it sounds like he wasn't really even close to coming back into that preseason game, obviously against the Lions, when he suffered that injury. And it sounds like he's still having a little bit of issue, getting himself on the practice field this week. So it will be interesting to see how the Friday injury report plays out.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be one to watch. My guess is Johnson will go. Will he play his usual, full complement of snaps? Maybe not, but there is some depth there at least to mitigate that if Johnson's not 100% available. If a core four cannot go, and we'll see, maybe he comes back full today. We'll just have to wait and see. People probably know by the time they're listening to this podcast. My guess is Trent Scott would be next man up. Jesse Davis could be in the mix, but being new and kind of playing. I'm with you. I got you. But just to put that out there about next man up, my strong suspicion it would be Trent Scott.
Yeah, I agree. I don't want to see it, but it is what it is.
And I know we talked about that he was not the savior, but Joe Haig would look really good in a Steelers uniform right now.
Sure would. And you were right. Boy, they valued him a lot more over there in Cleveland. Didn't they? Something like $2.1 million in this. Joe Haig got a little bit of a raise by leaving Pittsburgh, for lack of a better kind of thought there, I think. But anyway, it is what it is. We'll have to see what the injury report, how that plays out on Friday afternoon. I'm kind of with you with my gut feeling. I think Deontay might give it a go. I think Chukwuma Okorafor will give it a go. All four guys that are currently on that injury report as of Thursday night, I think they all go. It's just a level of how healthy will they be in that game.
Right. With Okorafor, I have no idea. I mean, hopefully he goes. Today will tell us a lot, but that's the one guy I'm kind of throwing my hands up saying we'll see. For the Bengals, they're pretty healthy. As we talked with Paul Daner, they didn't really play their starters much. They had a lower key summer, so a couple tight ends that may not work. Trent Taylor, who I think was going to be their starting punt returner, he was limited yesterday with a hamstring injury. We'll have to see where that takes him today on Friday, but the Bengals in good shape overall. Dave, a lot of Steelers players and coaches speaking over the last couple of days, including the coordinators, Matt Canada and Teryl Austin. Anything that they said that stuck out to you? I know Austin said he's going to coach from the sidelines instead of the booth, being upstairs for the first time in nearly a decade. Anything notable from either of those two guys, Canada or Austin?
Yeah, and I think that was kind of one of the big questions going in, especially with Austin there. Look, these guys are Austin's going to be you were going to miss Keith Butler, aren't we? From getting a lot of info during these coordinator corners, if you will. Matt Canada doesn't really offer you anything there. Just talked about the offensive line, how it's going to continually be a process to get better throughout the season. I think he talked a little bit how the wide receivers are hopefully a lot interchangeable, how they move them around, and how Chase Claypool probably going to see more time in the slot, and yada yada there. And Austin would not give up who's going to wear the green dot, I think, when asked. But at least he did say that he's going to be down, on the sideline there. So I don't know if we'd learned, a lot that we can obviously use and talk about ahead of the week one game here. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, from a player standpoint, probably not much being said either. Minka Fitzpatrick said he had forgotten some of the comments the Bengals made last year after that first meeting. Tyler Boyd saying the Steelers gave up at the end of the game. So maybe there's a little bit of bulletin board material, although that material existed for the rematch last year, and we saw how that turned out for Pittsburgh. So it does not necessarily mean that motivation will translate into a victory.
Right. And I think both sides have done the traditional give the other side, enough props and be careful where you step. Although it was kind of interesting to hear Minka talk about, we're not going to forget kind of about some of those comments made last season. But I mean, for lack, this is, obviously, a different Steelers team to some effect, that played both the Bengals games last year. They were beat up obviously on the defensive side of football last year, and this year you had the new quarterback and a couple new pieces on the offensive line there, and got a rookie receiver that you're hoping can make an impact here. So look, it is weird to kind of see. This is the first time ever that Steelers and Bengals, I believe, have met in week one of the season. And you would have thought that over the years that something like that would have happened, but quite the litmus test, if you will, right out of shoot for the 2022 Steelers to have to not only play a key AFC North game, but against the defending AFC champions as well.
Yeah, I think it's such a critical start to the season. I mean, every team wants to start the year, fast and get off to a couple of wins. But when you play the Bengals at Cincinnati week 1, and then you play Cleveland at Cleveland week 3, you got two really important AFC North games. You don't want to lose both, obviously. At worst, you want to split the two. So that really, I think, sets the tone and the tenor for the Steelers 2022 season. So anything else from players, I think they've been all pretty buttoned up, it feels like, this week.
Yeah, and kind of the things that if you're not talking about something, that's probably a good notion there. I know the team did announce, however, on Friday morning that they will wear a number 3 sticker on their helmets to honor the life of Dwayne Haskins throughout the season. So that's a great sentiment there for sure.
Absolutely, a really nice gesture there. Matt Canada did say that Mitch Trubisky has the it factor, but the way that he said it is a very Canada way to try to describe it. He says, "What is it? It's it. What is it? Nobody knows, but we're excited about where he's at." So I think that's a compliment. I think that's a good thing to say.
I think that was a segment on you know what Zoom used to be? Zoom used to be a children's show on the.
How do you know this?
Because I'm old. Zoom, we're actually recording this on Zoom, but Zoom actually used to be kind of an educational, or was indeed an educational children's show on PBS way back when there were like four channels to choose from on your tongue.
You had to get up and
and you actually had to get up and change the channel back then, Alex, and all. But it seems like kind of a play on words or something that you would see in a Zoom children's television workshop thing. So we'll find out if he has that it and how long that it is able to carry maybe the Steelers into the season, and how much that it, plays into keeping Kenny Pickett off the field, right?
And to stay with the Steelers quarterback room, Kenny Pickett talked about becoming the backup, the number 2, and just supporting Trubisky however he can. Mason Rudolph also spoke with the media, was asked essentially, "Do you want to be here? Have you asked for a trade?" Rudolph did not say yes or no, which to me generally means yes, although according to the PPG's Jerry Dulac, Rudolph has not asked for a trade. So, I don't want to, beat this dead horse probably more than I already have, but that's the latest on where Mason Rudolph stands.
Now, are we talking specifically that Rudolph has not gone, you could get into...
Well, I think, let me see what Jerry said, if I can find the exact quote here. I don't think Matthew has the exact quote from Jerry.
Are we dividing this up? Here's my thoughts. How could his side, even if it's not coming directly from Mason, how can his side not be, maybe saying, "Hey guys, if you really think we're going to be the number 3 here, why not try to get us out of here?" At least I would. I know if I was his agent, I would be pushing heavily to see if at least kind of prodding the Steelers that, hey, we certainly won't. Not that they'd have any right to, like there's a no trade clause, but I certainly wouldn't be against my client being traded sooner rather than later.
Dulac says, quote, "Rudolph and his agent Tim Younger have not approached the Steelers about trading him. According to sources, the Steelers would like to keep Rudolph to protect themselves against what happened in 2019 when they traded number 3 quarterback Josh Dobbs shortly before Roethlisberger sustained a season-ending elbow injury in week 2. So that is according to Dulac. Take that for whatever it's worth, but I've made that point many times, and I think Pittsburgh, the scars of 2019, is leading them to really be conservative when it comes to their quarterback room.
Sure, but if you can get a 5th right now, are you taking it?
I would personally. I'd be willing to assume that risk.
I would as well, too. I'd go get me some other number 3 floating around out there, throw them on my practice squad, and take that risk. I would not live in my fears of 2019.
And I'll still, pound the table for LA, the Rams, because Stafford didn't look so hot last night. The backup situation to me is kind of murky there.
And he cannot take those kind of hits and running. And he was one time tried to run away from someone over there on the sideline and got hawked down, I think, by a defensive lineman. He's not going to make it. I mean, there were already some questions about, that arm of his kind of going into this season. And if that offensive line continues to, in other words, they might be looking for another quarterback here sooner rather than later.
Mm-hmm. They may have to, for sure. All right, Dave, anything else? I think that covers the coaches and the players pretty well. I want to use this last episode here before the week 1 opener to kind of give an overall preview of the Steelers season. Should we do that? How do you want to do this? We can preview the Bengals game specifically. We can preview the Steelers season as a whole. How do you want to play this?
Well, we already talked during our interview with Paul and got a prediction and got his thoughts on the Steelers and the Bengals specifically, and I think I even threw my record in there as well too. So I don't want that to be the reveal in there. So why don't we talk about the 2022 Steelers now? Then we'll go to the Paul Dehner interview, and then me and you'll come back and kind of preview the game and give our thoughts on it. How's that?
Okay, good deal. So off the top, what do you see for the Steelers team as a whole, its biggest strength and its biggest concern as they enter the year?
When we talked, I think on the show the other day there, how much has, obviously you don't want to make hard decisions about this team going into training camp. You want to watch all that play out. You want to watch injuries maybe potentially play out. You want to see if there's any surprises from training camp throughout the preseason. Overall, there were not a lot of earth-shattering things that happened from the start of training camp to the end of the preseason, at least from inside my head, that made a huge change in maybe initial mapped out thoughts about this team. I think more than anything, there was the negative there by losing KZ, because I was really thinking that was going to be a super nice chess piece that they had found for that defense to maybe even to make it really better than what I think or thought that the unit could be. Here's to him not missing a lot of time. On the flip side, I did not see them purposefully downgrading their offense, in my opinion, downgrading their offensive line depth in the manner that they did. And once again, I think people are going to get too caught up with us putting Joe Haeg in the retired Joe Haig's number as
goes Franco, then Joe Haeg.
Yeah. But here we are already talking, Alex, and we're not even to the first Sunday of the season about how nice it would be for the Steelers to have Joe Haeg here on the depth chart. Maybe, and here's the hope, and Trent Scott make us, hopefully we don't have to see him, but if he does play, here's the Trent Scott making us put both feet in our mouth at the same time, all four of our feet in each other's mouth at one time, if you will. That's going a little deep there, but that's a long, ugly way of saying, man, I don't see the upgrade, tremendous upgrade on this offensive line over last year. And we went into this offseason saying, all right, Ben Roethlisberger's not going to be back. They're going to need to run the football, at least initially to start the season here, and run it good. They're going to have to protect whoever's under center there. Okay, maybe they did slightly upgrade this offensive line overall, but to me, it's not enough. So I think the defense, and I wrote yesterday in my annual season predictions and all like that, if the defense stays healthy, I think this defense will obviously be better top to bottom than the 2021 unit is. I could sacrifice a few sacks for some turnovers, to be quite honest with you. In other words, I'll be fine if they don't hit that 55 or 56 or even 60 number in the sack department, as long as maybe, 4, 5, 6 more turnovers than they've had these last couple seasons. I think that would be a fine trade-off, because I think this offense is going to need all the help in the world when it comes to short fields. We've talked just the other day about, and we talk annually about how this team really values their special teams units. They're going to need that this year. They're going to need, that's why they signed Gunnar Olszewski. Oh, that's why Miles Boykin is the gunner on the outside. Oh, that's why they kept Derek Watt. Oh, that's why Miles Killebrew, is valued as far. They're going to need all those things on special teams. They're going to need the defensive turnovers and those and the defense to be a top 10 unit, just to stay in football games. Not adding the win aspect. That's just to stay in football games here. So, top to bottom, I've got to be honest with you. I am not as optimistic of this 2022 Steelers team as I was going into the last season with this team. And that's even with Ben Roethlisberger, essentially being thought of as being on his last leg, if you will. Hey, say what you will about Ben Roethlisberger, and I wrote this up yesterday too. He kept you in games late and actually won you some games. I'm going to have to see Mitch Trubisky actually do that for this team more than once in 2022. Put a fourth quarter or two comeback win stat on the table once or twice. So, once again, I'm not as optimistic about this team as I was the one that we talked about at the same time last year, to be honest with you.
And to that last point, that's the stat that's rattled in my head since July. Over the last 2 years in one possession games, the Steelers are 15-4-1. That's the best record in football. Can they do that again? Is that sustainable? Partially, Ben was so clutch in those moments, and just partially probably had some quote unquote good stat luck on your side. I think there's going to be natural regression there. You can't be, 7-1 or, whatever the individual season records are, being 15-4-1 over the last 2 seasons in those really close games. So that's the thing that concerns me the most. If you're just playing 500 ball in those one possession games, I doubt the Steelers team's winning many games by multiple possessions this year. If they win, it's going to be close. And will they be able to have that level of success the way they've had it the last 2 years? I think that's asking a lot. I think this defense will be improved significantly so, especially against the run. But I think for Pittsburgh to really, truly make a run at this ultra competitive AFC and AFC North, they're going to need like a 2019 elite level defense. And I don't think they're quite there at that point, at that level. So that's the thought there. And then offensively, I think it's just going to be a lot of volatility, a lot of up and down play overall, at best, probably average. I do think the skill positions are the strength of this team. What they have at receiver, at running back, at tight end. I think you got really good studs and you're really deep at receiver overall. But as Paul Daner mentions later, you guys will hear in the show, the 2 biggest question marks with this team are the 2 obvious ones, offensive line and quarterback. And when your questions really lie at those 2 key spots, it's really hard to be sustainable and consistent and not have a roller coaster type of season. So to me, that is obviously where the big concerns are at.
Look, can this team be as bad running the football as they were in 2021? Can they be as bad as when it comes to creating explosive plays? I mean, I would hope not. I mean, the short answer is, can they be? I guess would be yes. I'm not expecting that to be the case. However, I don't think the increase in either one of those 2 phases of running the football successfully and creating explosive plays is going to be an increase enough up the board to make that much damn bit of a difference, to be honest with you. Look, if this team can't run the football, and they can't create explosive plays or it's anywhere close to the way it was last year, and you don't have a guy like Mitch, like Ben Roethlisberger last year that could pull out a couple of those games, this could get hard to watch sooner rather than later.
To the original question, where do you see the strength of this team? Because obviously we don't want to knock this team too much. There's talent. They're going to be competitive.
The defense,
it's not a bad roster.
Okay. The defense and the special teams, I think, are look. This special teams unit better have us talking about, oh, man, can you believe what they did in this game? Can you believe, man, how nice is it to see the football returned out past the 40-yard line consistently? Boy, look at Presley Harvin keeps pinning back opposing offenses inside their own 20. Block punts, turnovers, whatever there, along with the defensive front. I think this defensive front has, if they stay healthy, has the ability to be, and I remember the word that I was thinking about the other day when talking about TJ Watt, and the word he always, game wreckers, Okay. They have the ability. We saw, look, Larry Ogunjobi looks to, at least initially, to be that guy that left off where he did against the Raiders before suffering that injury. You get Cam back. Tyson Alualu looks healthy. It looks like you've got some good rotational pieces there. Now, how long can you get away with playing Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt 92% 92% of the snaps?
And same with Hayward. I mean, I think they're going to rotate and lower his snaps a bit, and hopefully they can. That was their plan last year, and that obviously didn't happen.
I do worry about that second linebacker position next to Miles Jack. I'm going to worry about that. Devin Bush needs us to give us reasons to believe again. I'm not worried about Miles Jack, though. I think he showed out very well. Can the rush be enough to help the cover? Can rush and cover go hand in hand? I believe it can be. I believe that they're going to be in several games in 2022 because of this defense tipping a ball at the line of scrimmage, it going up in the air and landing in the hands of Miles Jack. They obviously have got to be better against the run. I mean, I don't think they can be that bad again against the run, barring them having the injuries that they had. So we've got to be able to see this defense get into more predictable down and distances where they can do what they want to do on second and third down. I think the upgraded defensive coordinator is a very positive one there. So if this team wins games, in other words, if this team makes it over 500, Alex, it's going to be because of the defense. It's going to be because of the special teams, and it's going to be because Mitch Trubisky throws in, 2 or 3 fourth quarter game-winning drives, and it's going to be because this team can at times run the football against some certain teams.
And I would say it more consistently push the ball downfield, especially middle of the field. I think they're going to be more effective throwing the ball 20-plus yards this year.
I don't think pound for pound Trubisky's a bad addition. I just don't think they've done enough up front with that line to be able to put him in situations that are going to be more favorable situations for Mitch Trubisky on second downs and third downs. In other words, consistent. I worry about this team on third down situations as a whole. I worry about this team in inside the red zone, hoping they get there even enough to make a difference. I think that's where you're going to see a lot of the deficiencies in this team, mainly starting at up top on the offensive line there. Overall, I do believe by sometime after the bye week, this team will be in a position where they say, let's get Kenny Pickett in there.
Gotcha. To go back to the defense, I do like the strength in the secondary. There may not be, besides Minka, any super obvious names there that fans around the country know. but I think it's a really deep group. I think you have to be deep at receiver and secondary because of how many guys are always on the field at those positions. And when injuries inevitably strike, you have to have good depth there. And I think this team has good depth at corner. I think a guy like Trey Norwood's going to wear a lot of hats and have a really good second year for the Steelers. I think Micah Fitzpatrick will be less stuck than what he was last year. There's going to be more safety rotation, more movement, and more chaos able to be created in terms of the pre and post, looks the defense is going to offer for opposing quarterbacks. So I think that's an underrated positive for the Steelers team this year. What would you say, Dave, is the X factor for the Steelers this year? Whether that's a player or players or unit or something else, maybe not so incredibly obvious thing. I think offensive line's an easy one to give, but maybe a hidden X factor for this team this year.
I mean, explosive plays
okay.
on offense, period. This team is going to have to find ways of getting chunk yardage because on a down by down, possession by possession basis, I don't think it's going to be good enough. So they have got to find ways to push the football down the field and get chunk plays to stay around. Now, look, it's no secret. I mean, you can get raw, with the stats once again and stay away from the very obviously drilled down, big advanced stats here. It's all about turnovers and explosive plays. That's all it's about. Don't turn the football over. Have less turnovers than your opponent on a weekly, on a game by game basis, and have two more explosive plays than the other side of the football. You do those things enough, you're going to win 80% of your games. My fear is that, and I talked about it a little bit earlier, I think they'll be a little bit better in the explosive play category than they were obviously last year. I just don't think it's going to be good enough, and they better have 5 or 6 or 7 explosive plays a game because they're going to need those to win football games, I think, unless they can get a play a game of like a week 1 block punt against Buffalo here, a return for a touchdown here, that kind of thing there. So I would say the single most X factor going in for this team to be better than 500 in 2022 is explosive plays.
That's a great point. I'm with you there. And this is going to be a very on-brand answer for me, but my X factors this year are Chris Boswell and Presley Harvin. To me, Boswell is the last line of the Steelers offense. I think he'll be pretty busy this year trying to finish drives off the way that he was in that finale against the Lions. And then Presley Harvin is the first line of the Steelers defense in terms of creating good field position, long fields, and trying to boost the defense. That certainly will have a lot on its shoulders this year. So that's kind of where it comes down to me. I think when you have an offense, it's a little iffy. You need to have great special teams to try to pick those units up. And I think that's going to come down to Boswell, who of course is proven, and we expect Boswell to have another, Boswellian type year, a great season. Harvin is certainly more of the microscope will be under him to really step up in his second year.
Yeah, look, they're going to have to pin a lot of teams back. They're going to have to every time miss field goals. Field goals, obviously, with this team could play a huge component. And I'm not expecting that with Boswell. I mean, other than if you want to just use the theory that, the last time he signed a contract, he he didn't have a great season. But I mean, there's no writing on the wall that says regression from Chris Boswell. I will say this about Harvin: they don't need to play around with it too long. If you get through the first 4 games of this season and Harvin's not cutting it, you just need to pull the plug on it, I think.
Mm-hmm, right. If he's not cutting it, he may need to get cut is kind of the idea.
Right.
But I think they're going in with a lot of confidence in him based on the way they've handled him this summer. Yeah, to go back to Boz, it's not I'm expecting him to have a good year, but it's maybe going above and beyond even for his lofty standards of making even more kicks from 50 plus or in a bad weather game or a game where he goes 5 for 5 and he's just perfect and money on field goals. Like that's the bar I'm going to set for him this year. I think it's what the Steelers team's going to need out of their kicker to try to, win those tight games or at least get some points in the first half to keep the game close going into halftime. Like that's the thought I had with Chris Boswell this year.
All right, what's a ceiling win total for this team in 2022?
If everything goes right, and this will guess kind of tease where I'm leaning in terms of my actual prediction.
Well, that's what we're doing here, right? I mean, we're going to go ahead and give our predictions here, right?
Sure. Right. I would say
what's the ceiling?
I'm a little conservative here. I think I'd probably say about 10 wins. I think sounds right. Maybe 11 in terms of the absolute ceiling, if it all comes together beautifully. But I think in a tough AFC North, I mean, the Bengals won the division with 10 wins last year. So I think it's tough to be in a division where you're going to have, 12, 13 wins for any of these teams. But I'd say for Pittsburgh, about 10-7.
Yesterday, I wrote the very thing that I have them as the ceiling of 10 wins. And I said, I do think the max win total for the 2022 Steelers could be 10, but that's only if they steal a few extra games, which I just can't see happening. So, but stranger things have happened, but those stranger things, I think, produce 10 wins at a max.
Okay, gotcha. And then I guess the next question is, how many wins do you actually predict this team to win? So this is the part where we give our actual record predictions for the year.
I, all off season, have kind of been thinking 9-8. And then I got looks like Lamar Jackson decided to turn down the Ravens offer and bet on himself. He will make $23 million this season, expect to get the franchise tag. So it doesn't look like any deal for Lamar Jackson as we go into week one of our first weekend of the season here. Back to the Steelers. I'm trying to sidestep this. And I talked about Mike Tomlin. My Mike Tomlin factor is like 1.6. I think Mike Tomlin alone will help this team maybe win a game or two.
1.65, I think.
1.65 is my number. When I sat back yesterday afternoon and I tried to be, as objective as I could in my head about this team and what I thought the positives and negatives were, and there was one of me that wanted to cater. Found myself, I run a Steelers site. I should cater to, and try to hell with them. I think this team goes 8-9 at best. So
what changed from 9-8 all off season to I'm going to put them because that's the line. That's the big line there. Above 500, below 500. What changed?
I just the offense, man. I don't have faith in the offense. I don't have faith in the offensive line. I don't have faith in them being able to run the football. I don't have faith that game in, game out, Mitch Trubisky can be that guy. And I think whenever if they get in a situation where they are behind the 8 ball and maybe Mitch Trubisky's not playing great, well under 500, I think they need to start getting Kenny Pickett, the future of the franchise, in games and get that process going with him sooner rather than later, because I do believe that if they get Pickett some game action in 2022, and if they do the proper things next offseason, I do believe that the Super Bowl window can reopen as early as next season. But I certainly don't think that Super Bowl window is open right now.
Yeah, I don't think we're talking about that right now. So I guess for me, it's time to give my prediction as well. And I'm with you, Dave. We're in lockstep here. I've had 8-9 in my head all season, basically. And so I guess you were at 9-8 for the offseason. I've kind of been sitting 8-9, and nothing I've seen from this team really surprised me positively or negatively all that much during the summer. It's generally kind of how I thought things would go. I think the quarterback play has been better this summer overall than I thought it would be. But how well does that translate to a regular season is a bit of a different story. So I'm at 8-9, and I kind of broke it down like this. And again, I've harped on it a lot, and I probably will continue, and I'll be watching it very closely, is, what is the Steelers' record in those one possession games? Again, 15-4-1 over the last 2 years. I think that's been punching way above their weight. The way that I view the season is they're going to play 12 games this year in which it's a one possession game. I think they go 500 in those games. So 6-6. They'll have 2 games where they win by more than one possession, 9+ points. And then they'll have 3 games where they lose by more than one possession, more than 8 points. And so that's the way I get to 8-9 for the season.
All right. I have them specifically going 3-5 before the bye week. I have, let's see, I have the wins before the bye week. I have coming against Cleveland in week 3, the Jets in week 4, Miami in week 7. Those are the 3 wins. I have them losing Cincinnati and New England first 2 games. I have them obviously losing to Buffalo in week 5 and Tampa Bay in week 6. And then I have them lose. They never play well in Philadelphia on the road historically. Not that means anything. Every year is a new year, but I have them losing on the road. And then I have them right ahead of the bye. And then I have them coming out of the bye, beating New Orleans, losing again to Cincinnati, losing to Indy on the road, beating Atlanta, losing to the Ravens, and then winning 3 straight to give some hope there at Carolina against the Raiders in the Immaculate Reception. You can't lose the Immaculate Reception game.
Right.
And then week 17, I have them winning the rematch against the Ravens, so splitting with the Ravens. And then I have them losing the finale against the Browns there. So they'll have a chance, I think, to go 9-8. That'll, in my head, that'll be the talk. Can they go 9-8, or are they going to go 8-9? And I have them losing that game to actually go 8-9. So I have them 3-3 in the AFC North, which should not be good enough. 2-2 against the AFC East. 3-1 against the NFC South. And then I have them 3-5 at home and 5-4 on the road.
What do you have as the start, say, the first 4 to 6 weeks of the season? What's the record?
First 6 games. We talked about, too, when that schedule came out, how what a litmus test is this first 6 games of the season is. I have them 2-4.
You're giving me big 2013 vibes. Maybe not the 0-4 start to start, but a really slow start followed by kind of a really fast finish that doesn't quite get you there for the whole year. You dug yourself.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think, obviously Cincinnati is going to be good in that division. I think Baltimore, I was the one that was kind of down on Baltimore last year. Mostly, I think they're going to be a little better than they were last year. And if not, if the Browns had Watson all season, I'd have a brighter outlook for them. But them obviously missing Watson for most of the season, I think is really going to impact them as well too there. So I have the Steelers actually finishing 3rd in the division and 1 game ahead of the Browns. Yeah,
give me the AFC North predictions. I know you posted them yesterday, but give me the AFC North.
I have the Bengals 11-6. I have the Ravens 10-7. I have the Steelers 8-9. I have the Browns 7-10.
Yeah, I'm very close to you, but with one key difference. I have the Ravens winning the North at 11-6. The Bengals 10-7. Steelers 8-9. Browns 7-10. I think the Ravens are being slept on this year. Although Ronnie Stanley's continued injuries give me a bit of pause, but they will be a healthier team. This was an 8-5 team before Lamar went down last year. They lose the last 4 games of the season. They're not going to have that bad injury luck at cornerback and other places. I think it's going to be a team that gets back on track.
I have both, obviously, the Bengals and the Ravens making the playoffs out of the AFC North. Okay. And my playoff teams overall are on the AFC side. The Bills, the Patriots, the Bengals, the Ravens, and the Titans, and who else? The Chargers.
Okay. Gotcha. They have that AFC West is heavy.
Yeah, and the Chiefs, obviously. So right. my division winners are the Bills, Bengals, Titans, Chiefs, and the 3 playoff teams I have are the Chargers, Ravens, and Patriots. Sorry, I think I mentioned the who did I put in it? I shouldn't have. The Colts. No, I don't have the Colts making it. No.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I don't have a list of playoff teams, but obviously don't envision Pittsburgh being one of them. How many wins do you think the Steelers would need to have in order to really have a legitimate chance to make the playoffs in any capacity?
I think 9. I think 9 could maybe put you in. I think 10 would get you in, though. I think this is I think there are several teams in the AFC that I don't think there's one team that's going to just run away and hide like with a 15-2 record or anything.
I don't know. Buffalo's looking pretty good.
Yeah, but
I understand your point.
Right. I think. If this team gets 10 wins, they need to build a statue outside of Acrisure Stadium of Mike Tomlin. If this team gets in the playoffs, period, I think they should build a statue of Mike Tomlin outside of Acrisure Stadium.
Do you think this is his biggest challenge going into a given year since he took over?
I think so. Yeah, I do.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, outside of obviously losing Ben Roethlisberger 6 quarters into the season a couple of years ago,
Right. I'm saying like going into the year before you know how it's going to look.
Yeah. I mean, look, first time without Ben Roethlisberger. Yeah. Without a doubt there. Sure. And I do think though that the ceiling though, is 10 wins. If they hit the ceiling with 10 wins for sure, it will be in my head an amazing job by everyone involved.
All right, so that's our preview. I'm sure listeners are not too happy with us right now, both saying Tomlin will have that infamous first losing season. I mean, 8-9, one or 2 games can change for that and put you right on the right side of 500. I think this team will be competitive. I don't think they're going to be, 0-5 to start the year and just floundering and trying to play catch up late in the season, kind of a la 2013. But it's a tough AFC North. It's a tough AFC when you have the lack of firepower at quarterback and offensive line with a ton of question marks. and still a defense that I think will be very good, but elite. Not sure if I'm at that point yet. It's just hard to really envision, having a, 10, 11 win season.
What's the floor? We talked about the ceiling. To me, do you have the ceiling at 10 wins, right? At max?
I do.
What's the floor? 6?
Yeah, I think they're a relatively high floor kind of team. I would say 6 to 7. I think it's a pretty tight range of ways this thing will go. I think somewhere between, say, basically 7 and 10 and 10 and 7 is kind of the range that I would reasonably expect.
What should they have done differently, Alex, this offseason?
I mean, that's a good question. I don't spend a lot of time thinking back to what they could have done or should have done. I mean, obviously a lot will be pointed to the offensive line and did they make the right decisions there? I mean, I just think, some of it is out of their control when a guy like Adrian Clem just leaves and goes to Oregon. But when you have so much turnover there, and could you have invested more? I mean, is there just a general philosophical approach to, are you investing heavily enough in your offensive line? They did put a lot of money in free agency for, how little they typically spend. So, I mean, that's worth noting. But I just think, naturally, as you go through that transition year of the, the old era of the Pounceys and the Fosters and Villanuevas and the Castros, as you try to undo and rebuild all that, it does typically take a lot of time. And there's a lot of growing pains associated with that overall. So I don't know if there's one big thing that they missed out on. I think I was generally, pretty happy with the moves they made this offseason. But when you have an offensive line that just has been totally rebuilt over the last 2 years, it's hard to expect that unit to go from a top unit to evolve entirely and become another top unit immediately.
Okay, I agree. I mean, I think a lot of what we're going to be talking about this year is offensive line.
Yeah,
until we get to Kenny, and hopefully Kenny can, hopefully we when and if they get to Kenny, we start seeing the same sort of micro progression that we saw throughout the preseason with him. I think the good feeling that you can come out of this season with is, well, at least, man, it looks like maybe they found their franchise quarterback. Yeah.
And again, some of this is just, it's transition. You had so much stability and you have a change in quarterback and your offensive line's been rearranged. I mean, the Patriots in 2020 went 7-9 as they transitioned. They bounced back the next year and made the playoffs. So some of it's just the ills of, you had a franchise quarterback who was so valuable, so good, and you just kind of became accustomed to, this is your guy. He's always going to keep you competitive. Now he's not here anymore. And now you're in that new chapter. And it gets a little bit messy as you're writing that new chapter, the first couple pages. I think it will get better as time goes on. Obviously, if Kenny Pickett is or isn't the guy determines the course of this franchise for the next 2 to 4 years. But sometimes it's not really things that you can magic and throw a magic wand up and change your quarterback situation. It's just the ills of, we're in a new chapter, in a new era, and there's going to be some bumpiness associated with that.
All right. Did we just kind of bury all the leads right there?
I think we did what we do best, for sure. All right, let's pause here and talk to our friend Paul Dehner Jr., who covers the Bengals for The Athletic. You can follow him on Twitter at Paul Dehner Jr. as he previews the Bengals and as he gives some thoughts on the Steelers as well. So we'll take a pause and come back with Paul.
Okay, welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. It is Friday. It is September 9th. The NFL season, 2022 NFL season already underway with the Thursday night game between the Buffalo Bills and the Los Angeles Rams. And with it being Friday, as promised, the Steelers game coming up on Sunday, week 1, on the road against the Cincinnati Bengals. That means we are pleased to have back on the show once again Paul Dehner Jr., who covers the Bengals for The Athletic. You can follow Paul on Twitter, as most of you probably already are or should be by now, at Paul Dehner Jr. That's DEHNER, and then the Junior after that, all one word. Read his work at The Athletic. Just follow the links to the Bengals team page. Shouldn't be hard to find there. Paul, happy Friday, happy 2022 season, and welcome back to the Terrible Podcast once again.
Yeah, happy New Year, guys. How's it going?
Going fantastic, and probably going well for you, looking at this Bengals team coming off of obviously winning the AFC last year, participating in the Super Bowl. We talked to you right before we got on the air there about what a kind of a surreal experience it was for you. You have obviously covered Super Bowls in the past, but this was the first time covering, I believe, in your instance, covering a team that was in it. So with that, a quick overview here, from you, Paul, about what maybe what all have the Bengals done in this past off season. There was a lot of talk about how they had to upgrade the offensive line. It looks like they've kind of done that. Talk about the changes that the Bengals have had this off season to start off with.
Yeah, change. The funny thing is there hasn't been a whole lot of change. I mean, if you look at their defense, they have everybody back outside of the one guy that's in Pittsburgh now, Larry Ogunjobi. I mean, they have 15 guys who had 250 plus snaps last year for their defense, and 14 of them are back. The other is Larry Ogunjobi. I mean, and then they added 5 defensive draft picks, including first round pick Dax Hill. They're getting third rounder Joseph Osai back, third rounder from last year, who missed all of his rookie year due to injury. So that not much has changed defensively. I mean, all their coordinators are back, head coach, obviously the family ownership, so much is the same. Offense, same way. The names, right? I mean, Mixon, Chase, Higgins, Boyd, Burrow, that's all there. The change is the people standing in front of Joe Burrow. That is what the change is, and everybody knew that had to be where it had to change. So they went and they spent on trying to get a line that had reliability. They weren't trying to go and spend out the wazoo to try to have the best line in football. They kind of went mid-tier level on a number of different guys to fill all the way across. That was Ted Karras, came over from New England in free agency. Alex Kappa, they signed him very quickly, as soon as you could in free agency from Tampa Bay to play right guard. And then they signed La'el Collins from Dallas after he was let go by them in a cap move. And, they have Cordell Volson, a rookie who they drafted in the 4th round, is going to start at left guard. That's the difference. Hayden Hurst also is there at tight end. That's the difference. It's the change is they're saying run it back, but with real protection for Burrow this time, and see if that's enough to get him over the hump.
Paul, I remember back to an interview, I think around Super Bowl time there. And look, Alex and I obviously follow, every little detail of the Steelers, and that includes looking at the front office and the scouting department and, going deep down into this thing. And the Steelers have had a little bit of a change, obviously not only in general manager up top there, but a little bit in the scouting department as well too. I think I remember you doing an interview, something to the line, talking about really how kind of small the Bengals kind of whole scouting department and system is, and how they really get the coaches involved in that process as well too. And you talked, I think, a little bit about the benefits to that. Why don't you kind of just recap quickly, that process and how that is a little bit different from what the Steelers do, or a lot different, really?
Yeah, a lot different than how everybody does
right.
it for the most part. I mean, they're really an outlier in that respect. I mean, they have 6 scouts, and you look around the league, you see, I mean, teams like the Rams are up in the high 20s. I mean, the Steelers. Off the top of my head, I can't remember the Steelers number that was listed, but the point is, people may view that as a malfunction. The Bengals view it as a feature because they trust the names that they have, the people that they have doing that work. And you said it, they involve the coaches because they want all sides to be on board of a player that they are bringing in. They want the coaches to feel like they're coaching their guy, the type of guy that they want. And it's not, the scouts, the personnel people feeding the coaches, whoever they feel like they should be good, and you just go coach them up. They want it to be everyone kind of rowing the boat in the same direction. It's not a matter of the fact that they couldn't have more people in their staff. They absolutely could. It's not, I mean, they've hired so many positions across the front office, whether you're talking about content, sales, whatever. I mean, their front office is huge. They choose to do scouting the way that they do because, Duke Tobin's line that he always uses is I don't need more voices. I just need the right voices. And so that's kind of their philosophy. And it's, for now it's been vindicated, right? I mean, they've drafted incredibly well in recent years, including some big time tough decisions, at the top of the draft, and they've hit home runs in free agency repeatedly. That was really the driver of last year's Super Bowl. Was their free agency hauls the last 2 years were, outside of one miss on Trey Waynes, almost 100%. And it just, you guys know that doesn't happen.
Right.
And they also were like the Steelers. They rarely went into free agency. So to kind of first start really going into it and have the kind of success rate they did there, top it with drafts, I think there was a vindication to the way that they do things and the way they've built a roster that, honestly, with the youth that they have, the talent that they have, is kind of an envy of the league type of thing. Everybody wishes to have this set up with the quarterback on the rookie contract and 2 receivers on rookie contracts. I mean, it's pretty incredible kind of what they have put together for this point in time.
Before I let Alex fire a couple at you here, I guess kind of the talk with this, and it's not unusual to what they did last year. They didn't play a lot of starters at all during the preseason. And I think when you look at look back at some of the practice reports, there was not much, if any, tackling during training camp. And once again, this is kind of, I think, the schedule that they followed last year, and that obviously worked out for them. They got into week 1, and I think other than giving up like 320 something passing yards and missing 8 tackles, They came out to shoot strong last year against the Minnesota Vikings there in week 1. Now, they do obviously have new pieces on the offensive line. how is this going to play? Is it going to matter, I guess, in week one? Because the Steelers did this the opposite way. They tackled a lot during training camp. They had played a lot of their starters during the preseason there. I guess the biggest question is you wouldn't think this would matter much with the Bengals outside of maybe the continuity of the offensive line.
Yeah, that's the big one. I mean, is those guys have, because they also had those guys, were not all healthy. Lyle Collins missed the majority of camp. He came back for joint practices with the Rams, which was really their work. I mean, they got 2 days of joint practices with the Rams. That was the starters getting after. That was what, when we talk about prep, that was really their preseason. You're right. I mean, they didn't know. I mean, I jokingly said it's not quite country club, but it's had a country club feel to it. I mean, they basically blew off the entire summer program and hardly did anything there. And then in camp has absolutely been very light. Outside of they've ratcheted it up in recent weeks here, with the Rams practices being the center of that. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how that's going to affect things. I think that they have a feeling of being able to flip the switch, and I think that's dangerous. I think there's a feeling of overconfidence that you worry about maybe them having just because of that, for that same reason, feeling like they can just go out there and go play. And the contrasting styles is fascinating to me. The way Pittsburgh has treated it the exact opposite of the way the Bengals have, and maybe the Bengals view is one that is the right one in the long term, but that does open yourself up in the short term, certainly, to getting beat up a little bit in week one. And so I'm curious to see how those two, if that proves to be any part of this game Sunday at all, if we're still talking about that. But yeah, it really is a fascinating clash in style.
Paul, you mentioned how unchanged the Bengals are this offseason. Maybe their biggest change is the new stadium name. But I wanted to talk about this offense. Putting aside the offensive line, are there any steps for this offense to still take? Obviously, a major turnaround forward from 2020 to 2021. Are there any areas they still want to work on, feel like this group can get better at?
Yeah, I mean, short yardage was really bad last year, and it ended up biting them in the Super Bowl. But I mean, they were not very good converting on 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2. They couldn't really run the ball, and it went back to the lack of offensive line push, and that also went with red zone. I mean, they had trouble in the red zone at the end of the season. The first half of the season they were very good. In the second half of the season they had a lot of trouble down there, and so much of it is they just couldn't run the ball. Joe Mixon and the Bengals had, second worst in the league in yards before contact. I mean, he was constantly dodging people in the backfield and things like that. And I think the hope is that they'll be a lot better in that this year because of the new guys up front. But it's really the under-discussed part of the line. And people focus on the Burrow sacks and all that, which is true. But, they had so many drives that should have been able to continue on, stopped because they had gotten themselves in a 3rd and manageable and couldn't convert. So they're really focused on that and being better in those types of situations. And then what you're going to see is the evolution of Jamar Chase. I mean, they are going to use him all over the field. And last year, early on, they were just kind of taking it easy and trying not to put too much on his plate. And he played mostly outside receiver, ran a lot of go balls early. Then they started using him more. And it really, right around week 13 last year, they really started opening the playbook a little bit. And you saw Chase in the slot more, outside, all in the backfield some. And they were really moving him around like you see a lot of these star receivers. Mm-hmm. And now they had kind of a whole off season to brainstorm and plan and come up with different creative ways to use Chase. The defense is always saying, okay, where's number 1 at the beginning of every play? And that allowing them to do a lot of unique things. I think you'll see that be the case against Pittsburgh and throughout the season. I think they have a deep playbook of creative ways to try to use him. That's going to kind of also be their next evolution.
For my money, I think Joe Mixon's been one of the most underrated and underappreciated running backs for the bulk of his career. What makes him so consistent, and does his role change at all? Does P. Ryan, does Chris Evans play at all, or is it really still the Joe Mixon show?
No, he'll come off in third down passing situations for the most part, 2 minute. They tried to make him the every down guy to be the third down back too, and it just didn't quite take. And so Samaje Perine will take a lot of those reps. Chris Evans didn't quite come on the way they hoped he would, and given a big opportunity in the preseason to take that third down job, but he's still an excellent receiver and can do a lot of nice things. But yeah, it's still mostly the Mixon show. I mean, he's still going to get a high volume carry, certainly all the early down stuff. And he'll catch some passes too. But yeah, what's made him consistent, I just think, he's just so explosive in finding the cuts at the line. He's a nice fit for the wide zone, and I think it's really going to be interesting to see how he works with Collins, because Collins on those wide zone runs is so good at blowing up the backside of it, and Mixon is so good at cutting back against the grain of the backside. How many times this year are we going to see him cutting off of a Collins block and trying to take it to the second and third level and see what that means for their offense? I think people are really fascinated to see what that looks like.
Right. I know Kim Hayward just spoke about that yesterday, and obviously Pittsburgh's run defense 32nd last year, so it'll be a good test for the Steelers to start the season off. You mentioned earlier all the major hits in free agency, the Mike Hiltons, et cetera, but I thought Trey Hendrickson was just an A+ signing. My favorite stat with Hendrickson is in 2020, the Bengals as a team had 17 sacks. Last year, Hendrickson had 14 sacks. I mean, he's just been a perfect fit for Cincinnati. What's made him so seamless and just step in and step up as that number one defined edge rusher?
He's just relentless. I mean, he really is. I mean, you put the production numbers, and this division is crazy. I mean, you put the production numbers the last few years of Watt and Garrett and Hendrickson together, and it's amazing that Hendrickson's numbers are right there. I mean, he's been really ridiculous, and they've got him at a bargain deal now at $16 million per for what he's been. But yeah, he's just kind of, they would call him Blackout Trey, because he gets out there and he just kind of turns into a crazy person, and just goes nuts, just does not stop. And I think that's kind of his calling card. I mean, he's got nice moves and hand movement, and he does a lot of power up around that edge, and it works for him. I mean, it just seemed like in every huge spot last year, it wasn't just that he had 14 sacks. They always seemed to come in big moments when they needed him most, third downs, things like that. He had a real knack for when the team needed a play to be the one to go get it. So yeah, it's they don't have another like really premium pass rush. They don't have the Hayward to Watt. They've got nice guys inside, and they play as a team really well in there. But they do rely on him a lot to be the dude bringing the pressure. So it's going to be really there's a lot on his plate, and he eats.
Paul, we were fortunate enough to have three people out here in Vegas for the East-West Shrine game. They got an up close look at Cordell Volson there, and even our Josh Carney, I said, or indicated, man, there's something to this guy, and particularly that he might be able to kick inside really there to guard. He looks like he might be the real deal there. How pleasant of a surprise is Cordell Volson, and as experienced as Lael Collins is, you talked about the outside zone blocking and all like that. When it comes to pass protection, might Lael Collins actually be the weakest? I mean, it's not a bad weak link to have if indeed it's the case. But is Lael Collins maybe the weakest link on this offensive line?
I mean, no, I would think Volson is. I mean, he's still a rookie. He seemed fine. I mean, he's been reliable. He was in a competition that I think people thought Jackson Carman was going to win, and I think they gave him every opportunity to, and he was terrible. He was bad in the preseason games. He was bad in practice. He had to miss some time. Like, it just, all of it was bad. And Volson came in and was solid, reliable guy. He's still a rookie. He's still got a ways to go. He's definitely going to be the weak link on the line here week one. But the big misses the swings of just awful plays haven't shown up, whether that be in the preseason games that he's played or against the Rams in the joint practices. And that is really what gave them confidence to go with Molson. That, and honestly, they just don't really have a whole lot of other options. So he's going to be the guy. We'll see how he does. Nothing like seeing 97 in front of you for your NFL debut, but off he goes.
When you look at defensive side of football, and you got to see Larry Ogunjobi for one season there. You obviously got to see Larry Ogunjobi with the Browns. Prior to that, he agreed to a deal with the Bears during the offseason, only to have the failed physical and all in that quickly, and then several weeks later ended up with the Steelers on essentially on a 1-year deal there. We contended that as long as the Steelers got the Larry Ogunjobi that played the couple of snaps right before he went down against the Raiders, that they got a very good player in Larry Ogunjobi. It looks like he's been, so far in the limited snaps in the preseason, been that player. What are your thoughts about Larry Ogunjobi in a Steelers uniform and the fit?
I mean, it seems like a great fit. Larry Ogunjobi was a great fit for the Bengals last year, and really made a lot of big plays. And he's flashy. I mean, we've seen him. I mean, he's been staying in this division that he's been in his entire career now. Browns, Bengals, now over the Steelers, and he's just such a solid player. I mean, the only knock, if you were making one, would be he does miss some tackles. He missed some tackles last year. But that's because he's often flashing into the backfield so fast, and taking some chances in that respect. But gosh, he's disruptive, and he was a big time disruptor for them last year. He's going to fit in real nicely in the middle for you guys. And
how about B.J. Hill coming over last year? Obviously, some big shoes to fill with Ogunjobi, but how's he look this offseason slotting into that starter role now?
Real confident. Yeah, I mean, they actually, Ogunjobi and Hill played almost the exact amount of snaps last year when you look over the totality, including postseason, and their numbers were like eerily identical. With those missed tackles I mentioned being really the only real difference. And he played really well. I mean, and he has a lot more confidence, having now gotten paid, 3 years, $30 million. Right. It tends to boost your confidence a little bit. And I think that showed. I mean, we haven't seen, we saw who he was last year, and the expectation he's going to be that same guy. But we, outside of, the little bit of practices again, because they haven't really done a ton with real hard work on the inside. But yeah, he still looks to be a really solid player for him.
My last question for you, Paul, then I'll let Dave finish things out. How is Dax Hill, your first-round pick, going to fit into the defense in Week 1? It sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, that he's basically going to be Jesse Bates' replacement next year. But for this season, to start the year, is he going to be a dime guy, slot guy? What's his fit to begin his NFL career?
Yes. I think they plan on using
you
him
pulled a Dave.
That's my favorite.
Imaginable, which is why they loved him as a pick so
right.
much. I mean, they really thought they got a huge steal because, Lou Anarumo's defense, he loves versatile players. He loves teams not knowing what to expect or have these game plans that can morph into whatever they need them to be. And Dax Hill is like the perfect example of that type of player. He can drop down. I mean, he can play the slot. He played the slot really well at Michigan. He can play post safety. Boy, he looked great in the preseason playing post safety. He had a pick. He had a bunch of really instinctual fast plays. Got his hands on the ball multiple times. And he can go. I mean, he really has the skill set to play outside corner. He can do just about everything. And for now, this year, I think you're going to see a ton of 3 safety sets with Hill and Bates and Bell, where those 3 guys, all 3 can go anywhere, with Bates obviously being elite in the deep post, but he'll be all over the place. And Dax and Vaughn's versatility, be able to just kind of move them around however Lou Anarumo chooses to keep the quarterback confused. And they have kept this secret. I joke about it. It seems like Fort Knox, nobody can know about the grand plan for Dax Hill. They mentioned the night he was drafted. and all the way through to the last time we talked to Lou Anarumo. Doesn't want to say a word about the great plan, but they have one, and they're figuring things out. I was like, what is he going to rappel from the top of the stadium? What is the secret? Like, that's so, no one can know. So it's going to be really interesting to see what they do unveil when they get Hill. They're going to find ways to get him on the field. There is no question. And when he does, I think the expectation is he's going to be quite the playmaker for him.
Does that grand plan include replacing Bates next year, or is there any chance Bates returns? I know he's on the tag, and there's been a battle trying to get that.
Yeah, no, he'll be. I mean, he'll replace Bates next year. I think Bates will go sign a big contract with a bunch of guaranteed money somewhere else. They would have loved to have gotten a deal done with his side. They just couldn't find a way to make it work after they had about three real swings at it, and it just they just were never going to meet in the guaranteed money that Bates and his agent wanted. So he's back on the franchise tag this year, going to play and contract year, make himself a bunch of money, and he'll go sign elsewhere somewhere next year.
Paul, I think it's probably silly to ask you what the ceiling is on this 2022 Bengals team. It's obviously one step further than last year, and that would be to actually win the Super Bowl. I think you would agree there. But so I don't want to go that route. What is kind of the floor with this team? What is the thing that maybe concerns you the most about this 2022 Bengals? Is it just maybe a little bit of complacency at this point? Because it looks like the talent's there, and it looks on paper to be a more talented team than last year.
Yeah, I think there's one fact here that you can't debate. They're a better team on paper.
Right.
I mean, they just are. Between the continuity and the reinforcements on the line, they are. They had luck along the way last year, injury luck in particular. I mean, they were very healthy. So I worry about some of their depth in some spots, particularly at corner. There's not a lot behind Chidobe Awuzie and Eli Apple. That's proven. But outside of that, I think it's just a matter of, if you can keep everybody healthy, their floor, a tougher schedule, things like that. I mean, that's all going to be part of it, but their floor is probably around 500, assuming, they don't suffer massive injuries. That obviously can change things for anybody, and they got to keep Burrow healthy, but there's just so much, there's so much weaponry on offense. They've got so many different things they can do. And I think their defense is just wildly underrated. People not really realizing how good they were, not just in the playoffs when, they had 8 interceptions in 4 games, including in huge moments. But, really they were 8th last year in points allowed per drive during the regular season. You could easily see them finishing 5th or 4th in that number this year, considering everything they added and brought back. Yeah, I mean, it would be pretty stunning. They would have had to have taken some pretty serious depth hits to see them not be probably a double-digit win team. I have them 11-6,
okay.
And that might be underselling them a little bit.
Let's flip it around real quick. What is your objective thoughts on the 2022 Steelers?
Yeah, line and quarterback, isn't that kind of where is what's that going to look like? I mean, you love the defense, you love the players on the defense. I expect them to be, really good and back to that Steelers level that everyone expects, and is going to need to win them games. But, it's just hard to win in this league at the level that they want to if Mitch Trubisky's your quarterback, and maybe he plays well. But I mean, in this division, once Watson returns, when you're talking about Burrow and Lamar Jackson and Deshaun Watson as the other 3 guys, they've got to find a way to put it together. And I'm sure that Tomlin would love to rely on Najee Harris and a run game, but how much push is that offensive line going to be able to get for that run game? So those are all the questions. I mean, I think that exists, but I certainly can win a lot of games with that defense. It's just got to be a matter of seeing how the quarterback position and the line comes along, right? I mean, you guys know better than I do, but from an outsider's view, and maybe that's making it far too simplistic. That feels like it from where I sit.
Over 500 or under 500?
For the Steelers?
Yeah.
I think I had, right? I mean, I never bet against Mike Tomlin, so I don't want to. I never bet against the trend. But yeah, it just feels like this might be what the 8 and 9 under 500. I mean, I'm sure it'll be in the vicinity and find a way. He always does.
Yeah, you're not hurting. You're not stepping on any toes here. Yeah, I mean, in fact, I have May 8 and 9 as well too. But all right, I know which way this is going to go. How about a prediction for Sunday at what is it? Paycor Stadium now, right?
Paycor Stadium, yeah. I'm trying to get it right and not say the wrong thing too often. Yeah, I have the Bengals winning 17-13. I think it'll be low scoring. I think the Steelers will give the Bengals offense fits defensively, but they'll find a way. And I just think the difference is going to be this Bengals defense is really good, and I think they're really looking forward to trying to take advantage of that side of the matchup. But yeah, I think it'll be close, but I do think the Bengals will have enough to eke it out.
All right, so take the 6.5 points then. All right, we'll do it.
Yeah, the cover. Yeah, Pittsburgh covers, but no money line.
I got you. Hey, Paul, it's great to catch up with you again. I hope we didn't tie you up too long. It'll be a couple of weeks before we able to get you back on again when these two teams meet. You do a great job. Best luck to you this season. And Alex and I definitely appreciate your time on the Terrible Podcast to kick off this 2022 season.
Thank you, Paul.
Sounds great. Have a good one. Enjoy the season, guys.
And welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. And again, our special thanks to Paul Dehner Jr. You can follow him on Twitter at Paul Dehner Jr. And while I'll never be one to root for the Bengals to succeed, Dave, I was really happy personally for Paul to have that Super Bowl, trip experience. Obviously, it didn't end the way that Bengals, and I'm sure Paul hoped that it would work out. But I know he's a really good guy. We appreciate his time, and I'm glad he was able to see, that really high level version of the Bengals last year.
Boy, times have changed now, haven't it? Dating back, go back as 2008 when Steelers Depot started. The fact that I think this is the first time maybe that I've ever predicted them to have a sub 500 record in a season, and to have all the looking at the Cincinnati Bengals in a much different light, than we ever have had it during the history of this site, and obviously the history of this podcast here. I mean, it's going to be a real disappointment, I think, to Bengals fans if this team does not make another deep playoff drive, and really, anything less than the Super Bowl is probably unacceptable right now at this point. I think they've done a lot of things right over there at this point here, and they're having conversations that we're used to having, as Steeler fans. But now we're talking about, man, can this Steelers team make the playoffs now at this point? So times have indeed changed, and yeah, good for Paul. He's obviously covered Super Bowls before, and it was, as he told us, quite a surreal experience to actually cover one, covering the team that he covers in it. So good for him.
Yeah, that's the only downside to winning, expectations. And now there's that thought in that weight and a little bit of the hunted, not the hunter mentality. But all good problems to have in Cincinnati for sure. So again, thank you, Paul. For his time, shout him out on Twitter if you have a Twitter, and just let him know that you heard him on the Terrible Podcast. All right, Dave, let's you and I preview this Bengals game against Sunday, 1 o'clock for the Week 1 kickoff. We'll start with the Bengals offense. Obviously, it's generally unchanged at the skill positions: Burrow, Chase, Higgins, Boyd, all the names that fans know from last year. The big changes come up front with the offensive line, 4 new starters, everybody but the left tackle, Jonah Williams. So what are your thoughts on this Bengals offense?
Boy, I think they've done a great job of addressing all that. And, we even talked about Cordell over there at left guard and all. And I'm not a huge Lael Collins fan, but I think he definitely is an upgrade over what they have done in the past there. Alex Kappa coming over, obviously in free agency there. I wonder if how the kind of the inactivity, if you will, of the preseason and training camp and the tackling might play a little bit into this game. I know if you go, and we highlighted this with Paul, if you go back to last season, they are using pretty much the same template that they had. Now, they did give up some passing yards in that in that week 1 opener last season. They did miss 8 tackles, but man, they've got a lot of the same pieces there other than really the offensive line. And you talk about 2 different teams here. You know, both teams have kind of rebuilt offensive lines overall. I think they did a much better job addressing that in Cincinnati than the Steelers have seemingly done at this point here. I think you're going to see Joe Burrow, because, you know, this is the same Joe Burrow that coming off the appendectomy and all like that. I think there's going to be a concerted effort to get the rust kind of knocked off him in a manner of get the football out quickly. Remember he was able to beat the Steelers in one of those games last season by throwing like 19, 20 pass attempts or something.
The first game, he barely threw the ball.
Yeah, barely threw the ball. I think they're going to try to look at that template and get Joe Mixon involved early and try to run some of that inside zone and kind of throw, get Burrow kind of on the move, some of those short passes and just kind of paper cut the living hell out of the Steelers defense here to start with. They're probably not going to have at least they better not have a lot of success running the football, but they should have enough success on early downs to keep them out of the 3rd and 7s and the 3rd and 9s and the things that you generally get teams killed overall. So, and then you can obviously take your shots down the field with guys like T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. And don't forget they even have a great 3rd down weapon over there in Tyler Boyd. You know, you talk about the 2 receiving weapons that they have over there, and you forget about Tyler Boyd, who's a very accomplished player over there. So I just think as long as they stay away from the obvious mistakes and the stupid turnovers there, I think offensively they're going to be able to move the football. They got a great place kicker over there too, McPherson as well too. And a lot of people I think tend to. Well, you look at the kickers just overall. 3 of them in the AFC North, all 3 of them top of really the league overall there. So I think a lot of what you guys have highlighted there in the preview with the Joe Mixon and how good he is at kind of setting up those zone runs and the ability to cut back. And now you throw in the ability to maybe have some more wide zone success over there with a guy like Lael Collins and all, as long as they stay out of the continually being in the tee off downs against the likes of TJ Watt. I think they'll be fine offensively in this game.
Yeah, I think I love this week 1 matchup, Dave, because it's such a good litmus test for Pittsburgh in so many different ways. And I know the focus when you think about the Bengals is their passing attack, their potency, their ability to create that big splash play downfield, and that's undeniably true. But I want to see how Pittsburgh's front 7, how their run defense, and really that's an 11-man job. I shouldn't say it's just the front 7 handles this Bengals run game, because Joe Mixon to me has excellent vision. They run that, they pair the inside zone with the wide zone extremely well. And the whole point of the zone scheme is, the back makes you wrong. He's going to cut based off of how you flow. So gap integrity and run fits are really important. Cam Hayward spoke about, cornerbacks needing to tackle out on the edge and how do you defend the cutback lanes and things like that. So I want to see how disciplined. I think there were a litany of issues in last year's run defense, but it was just an undisciplined unit overall that did not execute their assignment and stay in their lanes and things like that. And so, gap integrity is going to be so critical in this game. So that's where it starts for me. Can you put the Bengals in some 3rd and longs? And although I think they've done well to upgrade their offensive line, there is the question I'm sure they're facing right now. You have a lot of new pieces there. How do you handle, as a unit, how have you gelled? And Paul talked about how Collins missed time. The line hasn't practiced a lot. They didn't play a lot inside stadium. So can Pittsburgh's defense, which is more experienced and veteran and more cohesive, create some chaos for that Bengals offensive line that, though maybe more talented than they were last year, is a lot newer and just trying to come together as a starting 5. that to me is probably one of the most critical factors of this game.
I mean, we both agree this is going to have to be, rewind back to week 1 last season. We were talking about, oh man, how is this team going to be able to win this game at all? We both obviously, I think, picked against the Steelers in that one. And how did they win that game? Well, they kept the score down. Overall, they had a key 4th down stop early in the 4th quarter of that game that caused a little bit of momentum. They got the punt block for a touchdown in there. Huge turning point. TJ Watt had, at least a strip sack in that game. All those same things that happened in that week 1 game last year against the Bills have got to happen again. The Steelers offense has to play great defense in this game by not giving the Bengals offense an opportunity to attack the Steelers defense in short field situations there. So merely keeping the football on the other side of the field and making the Bengals in a week 1 game where they probably lack some cohesion overall, consistently go 75 yards every time they touch the football is a key factor in this as well, too. If you give them short fields, no matter how much better your defense is, it feels like at least automatic 3 points for them. Mm-hmm. And potentially, look, another thing in that week 1 game last season, the Bills were able to move the football to some degree, but they went 1 of 4 in the red zone.
Ooh, good point. Right. Situational football. That's how teams are defined in today's NFL, situational football.
So you have to think that the Bengals are going to probably have 3 to 4 red zone trips in this game. Can you force them into field goals again, essentially, and keep them out of the end zone? You cannot give up two touchdowns in this game to the Bengals, I don't think, period, because they're going to have enough field goals in there that would be the difference.
Right. I mean, if Cincinnati's going 3 or 4 in the red zone, that's blouses. That's game.
It's over. Yeah.
Pittsburgh's not going to go 3 or 4 in the red zone. Even if they make that many trips, they're going to be settling for a field goal. So that situational ball, I think it's going to be really critical. And to go back to Mixon briefly, the stat I have on him is since 2018, over the last 4 years, only 2 running backs in football have run for 1,100 plus yards in 3 of those 4 seasons. And that's Joe Mixon and Dalvin Cook. That's it. That's the whole list. And so that's a really underrated back overall. But of course, you talk about their passing game and their big playability and, do you have the firepower at corner? I think the Steelers have a good cornerback room. I think Ahkello Witherspoon needs to play a heck of a game against Jamar Chase or T. Higgins, whoever he faces, and, win some contested situations and jump ball moments against either of those guys. But whoever's on the other side, the Levi Wallace or Cam Sutton against either Chase or Higgins, can they make some plays as well? Because their cornerbacks got torched last year. Some of that was James Pierre, obviously, and T. Higgins in that one Moss play. So, hopefully you'll be better from a technical standpoint, but do you have the actual talent to match up against their high-level guys for a full 60 minutes? One play is all it takes to get burned, and that's the story of the game. And so that's what you're going to be battling the entire contest.
The Steelers won that game last year 23-16. It feels like if they're going to win week 1, it will have to be 23-16. Yep. Or look, 20-16 last time I looked works as well too.
Right. I mean, well, against Buffalo, they sacked Josh Allen, I think 3-4 times in that game, including the forced fumble that you referenced, which was in a field goal situation as well. So it took points off the board directly. They only sacked Burrow twice in the 2 combined meetings last year. The pressure. Now, the first game they had, and everybody was hurt. There was no Watt, no Highsmith, but certainly you're going to have to sack Burrow more than twice probably in this game if you want to win this one.
Right. Looking back, Watt had 2 in that game. Cam Hayward had 1. So you're going to have at least 3 or more sacks, and probably the outcome like you did with at least one of those with Watt stripping the football out. And I did that. Let me look back here on that.
That come off a turnover. The Steelers had turned the ball over or something, and then Pittsburgh got it back. Or was there a bad punt?
Let's see. Probably a bad punt in there. Let's see. The Steelers obtained the football, but they didn't do anything with that turnover, though. They got that turnover about halfway through the second quarter, and then they ended up going 4 plays and punting.
What happened on the Steelers possession before the forced fumble, though? What's the context of how the Bills were in that situation? Was that a turnover? Was that a bad punt? Or am I misremembering entirely?
Let's see. They punted. You mean the possession before they took over for the fumble?
The Steelers' possession before Buffalo got the ball that led to the forced fumble. What happened on the Steelers' possession before that?
Well, they
Buffalo
started
drive?
at their own 7, and they went 3 plays, -2 net yards, and punted from their own 5.
And was that punt good or bad? Was that a shank?
The punt went to the Pittsburgh 35, I believe.
Okay, so not a good punt. Okay, so there was a bad punt. So again, that's a big moment for your defense to step up. They're already on, field goal fringe to start that drive. Even though Pittsburgh did nothing with the turnover, that's taking points off the board in an ultimately pretty close game.
And then, another key possession in that game was right before the half there, right? Because Buffalo took over at their 9, 13 plays, 96 yards for a touchdown drive right before the half there.
Well, the other thing I think about that game as well is how that game started. Remember, Isaiah McKenzie had that 75-yard kick return to start that's how the season started. And actually, it reminded me last night because on the broadcast in that Bills game, I think it was the commentator said, Isaiah McKenzie back to return had a big 70-something yard return to start last year. And I went, oh, yeah, that happened against Pittsburgh. But Pittsburgh forced a field goal on that drive. And so that's a situation where you're in a tough situation for your defense, but you're playing great situational football, holding teams to 3. It's an obvious statement to make. It's always going to be true. But in this game, especially against the extremely potent Bengals offense, you have to hold these teams to 3.
All right. Shall we get to some picks here?
Yeah, I think we should. Let's do it. Before we do that, though, we should hear from our friends at MyBookie. I also want to get we didn't mention our Super Bowl picks for this year as well. I just hastily did mine. I know you announced yours yesterday. So what's your Super Bowl prediction this year?
Yeah, I'm not feeling great about it. One game into the season, I like one side of it.
Yeah, you half feel good about it. Yeah,
I half feel good. I mean, the Bills look really, really good, and if they stay healthy and they get Tre'Davious White even back, I mean, those really, they bent, but they didn't really totally break in that game against the Rams there. But I have the Bills going to the Super Bowl and actually winning it over the Rams. So I have a rematch of what we saw Thursday night in Super Bowl 57. But the Rams have got some work to do. I think at this point, I have the Bills, I think, beating the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game, and I probably should have thought a little bit harder about the AFC Championship game because I had the Rams, or the NFC Championship game, I had the Rams beating the Packers.
Okay. I just have a Super Bowl prediction in terms of the 2 final teams here. I'm going to go pretty chalk in the AFC with probably everybody else here and say the Bills, especially coming off how they looked last night. I think you have to go with one. The NFC is kind of more of a mess, and there's no, clearly defined favorite there. So no one a year ago would have picked the Bengals to go to the Super Bowl for the AFC. I don't think many people are going to pick my NFC team, and that's partially why I'm picking it. I'm going to say the Philadelphia Eagles get hot with Jalen Hurts at defense. They add Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. They're going to win that NFC East. It's a good offensive line. The receivers are better. I got Bills over Eagles in the Super Bowl.
Okay. All right.
I do want to just backtrack really quickly and we didn't touch on the Bengals defense too much in our preview of this game. And that's an underrated unit. Hendrickson against Dan Moore is a big concern for me. Yeah. Logan Wilson had a couple of really good games against Pittsburgh last year. They got a great safety pairing in Bates and Bell, and Paul mentioned, what Dax Hill can bring them. So just a quick couple of notes, Dave, if you could, on the Bengals defense.
Look, they should be able to get after the quarterback again, even with losing Ogunjobi up front there. He's a monster. And I think that stat speaks volumes about what they were in total sacks going into last season than what he was able to put on the board on top of it. I think that Logan Wilson is in the middle of that defense at linebacker is probably one of the more underrated middle linebackers in the game. I think he's super smart. I think they look, if there's a weakness maybe in this defense for them, it is potentially at the cornerback, at one of the cornerback positions. But once again, I think they're confident with going rush and coverage going hand in hand. Jesse Bates, I think his resume at safety kind of speaks for itself overall there. I just think top to bottom, as long as they don't have the injuries on that side of football to the magnitude that maybe say that the Steelers had last year, I think their defense is just going to be just fine overall. I think they'll be able to get after the quarterback. I think the way their offense plays and able to put points on the board this year as well, too, is going to put opposing offenses in precarious situations later in the game where they become more predictable, and that's just going to make that defense of theirs that much better.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's a good unit overall. Hendrickson, the chief concern. Wilson's finally given this team a strong off-ball linebacker they've been missing for years. And I think because there's so much continuity defensively in that secondary, they really changed that post-snap picture a lot. There's a lot of late safety rotation. They disguise and they hold coverage as well. And so Mitch Trubisky really has to be able to capture that immediate post-snap picture, because what you see pre-snap, what you see post-snap, and that family of coverages that Mike Sullivan talks about is going to be different. And that's my concern, that a Jesse Bates or somebody, lurks and robs a crossing pattern underneath and picks off a Trubisky. So that's the worry for me when it comes to the Bengals secondary.
Look, you don't need the Steelers on a game-by-game basis anyway are not going to want to have situations where, say, a Mitch Trubisky is having to drop back and throw 35 times, 38 times a game,
Sure.
You damn sure don't want to do it against the Bengals.
Yeah. I mean, and obviously, can you stay on schedule with your run game? Can you be more efficient? That's going to be the general theme of the season, but it starts in week 1.
You're gonna find out where Dan Moore Jr. and hopefully he plays Chukwuma Okorafor are real quick right out of this chute. You're gonna have to be chipping on those guys on the outside. I envision we're going to see some 12 personnel from the Steelers offense early and often in this one, right?
I think so. I think, though, it's a new offensive line coach, and we'll see how tweaks are made, but they typically don't give the left tackle a lot of help. I think about Myles Garrett matchup last year. Dan Moore did not get a lot of help in that game. I mean, generally there's more help on the right side. It's a bit more natural to do. So I think, you'll see maybe if it's Trent Scott starting, more help there. But I think Dan Moore, it's going to be sink or swim for him.
Ideally, I want to see Mitch. I mean, in a perfect world, you want Mitch Trubisky maybe to drop back and have to throw, 23 times in this game in a perfect world.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to get their wish this weekend, though.
Okay.
All right, Dave, let's get to, before we get to our week 1 picks, let's hear from our friends over at MyBookie, and then we'll make our week 1 selections.
All right, football season's back. Winning season has also officially returned. And with the NFL season now underway, there are plenty of opportunities to win at MyBookie. Whether you're a seasoned bettor or a first-time bettor, MyBookie gets you the most for your money with a double deposit bonus right out of the chute up to $1,000. All you got to do is sign up. Use our promo code TERRIBLE. That's terrible on your first deposit, and you'll instantly double your money with MyBookie. It's quite simple. A $250 initial deposit puts $500 in your account, and you can use your funds to bet on as many individual games, contests, or props as you want, and not just football either. Bet on team win totals still at this point, predict a Super Bowl winner, or use the MyBookie prop builder to give yourself the edge you need to secure the bag. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie, and do so by going to mybookie.ag and use promo code TERRIBLE today. So with that, we'd like to welcome back, as we have the last couple of weeks here, MyBookie and mybookie.ag. And we hope you use promo code TERRIBLE at sign up. Use them quite a bit over the years, and a very good company to make your bets with there.
And Dave, you are 1-0 to start the year. I am 0-1 after you took the Bills last night, and I took the Rams, and I look a lot dumber one game into the
year. It's a first game jitters on your part. I think the line was 2.5 there. I felt pretty good. I had the Bills minus 2.5, and you took the Rams plus the points. Let's get into week 1 here. All right, the the NFL couldn't have orchestrated some of these matchups. It's amazing how some of these things work out. Cleveland Browns against the Carolina Panthers, right out of the chute in Carolina. This is a pick'em game. Does Baker Mayfield get his revenge right out of the chute against the Browns? Pick'em.
I'm certainly rooting for Mayfield to get his revenge, but the Browns, although no Watson, that roster overall is still really strong. That run game's impressive. I'm really down on Carolina this year. I think they'll be one of the worst teams in football, along with Chicago. I'm going Cleveland.
So you think the defense is going to be enough in that one for the Browns, right?
And that run game, that O-line's still really stout.
I am down on the Panthers as well, too, this year, but I've got this vision of Baker getting revenge here. I'm going to take the Panthers. They're not going to win many games, but this will be one of them this year. Give me the Panthers in the pick'em game straight up there. So we're going to be different. We're different right out of the chute here. New Orleans Saints at the Atlanta Falcons here. Saints on the road giving 5.5 points according to mybookie.ag.
Jameis is playing, right? I know he was a little dinged up. Atlanta just, how many weapons do they have? I mean, there's Kyle Pitts and, London's been a little banged up. He should play in this one. I'm going to give me the Saints in this one.
Yeah, I think the Saints do this by right at around 6 points. So I think they're going to cover that 5.5 there. So give me these Saints laying the 5.5 along with you. San Francisco 49ers on the road against the Chicago Bears. Another road team here giving up big points. 49ers favored by 7 on the road.
Ooh, Trey Lance's first start. A lot of uncertainty there. I just mentioned I think the Bears are going to be a mess this year, but the Bears are at home. Is that what you said?
Yes. Hosting the 49ers.
I think the 49ers win, but the Bears cover.
I will go with you on this. Give me I think the 49ers win this, but give me the Bears to cover. I'll take the 7 points with you. New England Patriots on the road against the Miami Dolphins here, right out of the chute. Believe it or not, the Dolphins are favored at home, 3.5 points they're laying to the Patriots.
You know what? Give me Miami in this one. I like Mike McDaniel. I think that Patriots offense, it's looked really, creaky to start the year. You got questionable play calling and play callers and all that kind of stuff. Miami getting Tyreek Hill to throw to and Jalen Waddle hopefully playing in this game. Give me the Dolphins.
Yeah, they're trying to set us old timers up here and saying, man, can you believe Bill Belichick
right.
opened the season as the underdog here? Surely you got to take New England in that 3.5 points, right? I'm with you. I'm not buying it here. I think Miami wins this and covers at home. I think New England will be fine as the season progresses, just not in week 1 here. Give me the Dolphins lay to 3.5 points here. Philadelphia Eagles, your Super Bowl pick or your NFC Super Bowl pick on the road against Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions. Eagles laying 4. I drafted Jalen Hurts in a big money league to be my quarterback here. So I'm hoping that you're right here. Eagles laying 4 on the road against the Lions.
I think I got to take the Eagles now, which is good because I was going to anyway. Give me Philadelphia.
I'm going to hold your hand and walk with you on this one. Give me the Eagles laying. A lot of road teams favored here. Give me the Eagles laying the 4 on the road. Let's see. The Indianapolis Colts against the Houston Texans. Another road team with a big line. Colts -7.
Sometimes these in-division games, they get a little bit tight. And Davis Mills didn't have too terrible of a year for the difficult circumstances that franchise worked through last year. Again, I think, like that 49ers-Bears game, the Colts win, but the Texans cover. So give me Houston.
That's exactly my thoughts here. I think this is a close, low-scoring game right out of the chute. I do think the Colts win this, but I think the Texans maybe get a late field goal to keep it close here. Give me the Colts, give me the Texans +7, but I do think the Colts win this outright. Baltimore Ravens on the road against the New York Jets, another road team by a touchdown here, and I think the Jets are going to be without that tackle that they did, Dwayne Brown,
yes.
As well too. That's a big one in this as well. Obviously, got to play Flacco. Ravens laying 7 on the road against the Jets.
Do you smell a rat in this one, Dave? I'm trying to decide. I mean, the Flacco revenge game of it all. I'm going to go Baltimore because I picked them to win the North. I think they'll be a lot better this year. That run game will be more consistent, but I wouldn't be surprised if I'm eating some crow come Monday morning.
Nah, you mean eating some Raven?
There you go.
Nah, I'm not buying it here. Give me the Ravens in a walker here, laying the 7 points here. Jacksonville Jaguars on the road against the Washington Commanders. Commanders at home laying 2.5.
Give me Jacksonville in this one. I think they're going to take steps forward. They're not going to be obviously a playoff team this year, but there's more stability. One of these second-year quarterbacks is going to make a jump. I think Trevor Lawrence is good a bet as any player to choose from. So give me Jacksonville in this one.
I got sort of the same read as you on this as well, too. I think Jaguars are going to win a few games this year. I think Washington at some point, though, rebounds and ends up, I think, making the playoffs here. But you know what? Give me the upset, too. Not only give me the 2.5 points, give me Jacksonville straight up on the road to beat the Washington Commanders there. So we're holding hands on that. Kansas City Chiefs on the road against the Arizona Cardinals. Chiefs laying 6 points on the road against the Cardinals.
These road favorites, kind of crazy. I'm going to go KC in this one. No DeAndre Hopkins for the Cardinals. Maybe some question marks there. Give me KC.
Yeah, I think KC will be fine in this one. Give me the Chiefs to cover that 6 points on the road there. New York Football Giants on the road against the Titans. This time the home team is favored. Titans laying 5.5 at home against the Giants.
Yeah, give me the Titans. The Giants, I think they're going to generally be in the right direction under Brian Daboll and Joe Shane, but give me the Titans in this one.
I'm going with you on this one as well, too. Titans laid a 5.5 points at home. Green Bay Packers on the road against Minnesota Vikings. Packers only 1.5 point favorites on the road against the Vikings. Do you smell any sort of a rat here?
That's a curious one. I know there's an issue with the Packers receivers. Is Lazard going into play? They got some young guys in Watson and your boy Romeo Doubs, but I can't bet against Aaron Rodgers in a Kirk Cousins matchup, so give me Green Bay.
I can't either, unless I don't know why this is so close like this. Maybe we'll find out and eat our words here. Give me Green Bay later, 1.5 on the road against Minnesota. Las Vegas Raiders on the road against the Los Angeles Chargers. Chargers laying 3.5 at home against the Raiders.
Always been a big Chargers fan in terms of what they have right now. Justin Herbert, to me, could have an MVP caliber type of season. Give me the Chargers.
I think the Raiders is going to take some time under their new head coach and all to get things going. I think the Chargers are a legitimate, team to make a playoff run this year. Give me the Chargers lay the 3.5 at home against the Raiders. Buccaneers on the road against the Cowboys. Tom Brady's something like 6-0 against the Cowboys lifetime, I think. Laying 2.5 on the road against Dallas to open the season.
Yeah, that one's tough. We got some beat up offensive lines on both sides of the football. End of the day, give me Tampa Bay.
Give me Tampa Bay to cover this as well, too, against the Cowboys there. That brings us to the Monday night game, I believe. Denver at Seattle. Yawn. Denver laying 6.5. Russell Wilson, how do these things work out just like this for the NFL? Denver laying 6.5 against the Seahawks on the first Monday night game of the season.
Yeah, give me Denver. I mean, I get why this is a Monday night game for the matchup of it all, the storyline, but I feel like we're going to be 10 plays into the game and go, why is this a primetime game? This is not needed to be watched by national television, but give me the Broncos.
The Seahawks are the version of the NFC version of the Steelers, or no?
Oh, don't do that to the Steelers, man. I think Seattle is in a lot rougher place right now than Pittsburgh's in.
They are in a rough place. I'm with you, though. I think this is a turn out the lights. The party's over by not too long after halftime here. Denver and a laugher laying the 6.5 there. That brings us all the way back to the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Cincinnati Bengals. The line on this, I think, has been right around 6.5 for a while now. Bengals laying 6.5. On the road. I have a feeling a lot of people know which way we're going on this, and they're going to point to, well, you guys didn't learn your lesson week 1 of the season last year. What you got, Alex, and a score? Bengals laying 6.5 against the Steelers.
Yeah, I think people know which way I'm going to go, and you can take that maybe as a good thing because I might be wrong the way that I was wrong in week one last year, but I have the Bengals winning this one 27-17. Just think the Bengals offense, they're going to put up points. Pittsburgh's offense, can they match them? That's going to be tough to do. The Bengals, they can get you with chunk plays. That defense is solid. Their pass rush overall is going to create problems. Being at home certainly helps them as well. So 27-17, Bengals over Steelers.
I have the Steelers getting a late field goal in this to keep the man happy, or anybody betting against the man happy. I have the Steelers losing this one 24-20 overall. So I think a late kind of situation, I don't know, to try to do something and get the onside kick or something like that late. But 24-20, I have the Bengals beating the Steelers in week one, but I do have the Steelers covering that number overall.
I am missing your stone cold lock of the century of the week. I didn't. Is that Denver, Seattle? It feels like that's the one for me, I think.
You know what? The stone cold lead pipe lock of the century of the week for me shall be Eagles covering the 4 against the Lions. How about that?
There you go. Good deal. But we're both picking against the Steelers here, and both, hopefully coming here Monday saying how wrong we were.
Yeah, I'd love nothing better than to come with my tail between my legs again. All right, shall we get to some emails to wrap this up?
Yeah, and our inbox is not going to be too happy after this one, so hopefully there'll be some happy emails before this episode goes out live.
Let's see. Longtime listener from Antonio Fraser. Love the site for the information you guys provide. You are by far the best Steelers site ever. My question is about the offensive line. Why would the Steelers let go of Haig after he played pretty good for them last year and keep Green when, as you guys said several times, that he won't even be active? Look, we don't know for sure. Our at least speculation is Kendrick Green better not be active on game days. He says, also a side question, do you think the Steelers will run way more play action to back teams off from playing 8 in the box? Thanks as always. Look forward to your expert opinions. Antonio, look, I certainly wouldn't be opposed to seeing them run more play action. I think play action works, and I think the numbers dictate it as well, too. Whether you're able to run the football or not, I think we're going to see a lot more under center situations than we have the last couple of years here. So I think you will see that. As far as the effectiveness of it, we'll see. As far as your question about, why would they let Haig go? I mean, I think we've talked about that quite a few times. Just, maybe just not a fit with what Pat Meyer's trying to teach.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to know for sure the reasons. I think Trent Scott was comfortable. The Pat Meyer connection certainly helped. The Haig salary maybe had a small factor in things as well. In terms of play action, yeah, you're going to see a lot more under center, a lot more play action. I mean, this team historically had one of the lowest play action rates in 4 of the last 5 seasons. So that should change this year. How effective will it be? We'll have to see. The Bengals they used to play a lot of too high, maybe a bit less last year. So you may, a
lot more cover one, right?
Right. That's what I saw at least. So, maybe you may see some too high that has nothing to do with play action, but just kind of the Bengals structure of it all. But we'll see. But I think certainly you'll see a lot more under center and a lot more play action.
All right, Bryce writes in here, can't believe week one's finally here. My theory on some positions and why we're having issues. He says, and just stay with me on this. He says, I think Tomlin is trying to fit some square pegs into round holes. While Devin Bush was drafted 10th overall, that doesn't mean he's a green dot type of linebacker. I think it causes him to think too much and not just play loose like he did in college. Just because he was drafted high doesn't mean he'll automatically be the guy with a green dot. He says, I don't think that's his game. Same with the offensive line. Too much of trying to be position flexible with the starters. He says he thinks Chooks is more of a left tackle, but he's at right. He says he thinks Moore is more of a right tackle in the pros, but he's at left. He says Dotson is a right guard, but we have him playing left guard. He says those things matter, and I think by doing these things, Tomlin hasn't put the players listed in the best position to succeed. He wants to know if we agree with that. Number 2, if Kello picks up from last season and continues to play, should the Steelers strongly consider letting him travel every week with a top wide receiver?
A lot there to address, I think, in terms of the offensive line configuration. I get that. I don't. More to me has always been a left tackle, so I don't think his natural spot's at right tackle. Some of it's just, whenever Chuck Okorafor was getting work in, he had Villanueva at left tackle, and so Okorafor had to play right. With Kevin Dotson coming in, DeCastro was at right guard. You wanted to play Dotson, he was going to be your left guard. So sometimes there is that. That's how they've been training for a while now. They're probably pretty comfortable at those spots because they've worked there for a little bit. In terms of the second question with Witherspoon, I would say yes. I'd be all for Witherspoon traveling if he plays well in this game. Have that guy travel. I know there's a domino effect in that, but Wallace can play either spot on the outside. Sutton's versatile. Take advantage of that. So I would personally do that. I know it's been a long time since Pittsburgh has traveled their cornerbacks, dating back since the Ike Taylor days in his prime. But I would do that if I'm Pittsburgh, if Witherspoon plays well in this opener.
I mean, how much have we seen, though, Kello even on the move since he arrived?
Not much. I mean, he's been left cornerback, but he's played both sides before. I mean, and so I think he could do that.
I would not be opposed to it at all. I wonder if to answer the question, I would not be opposed to it. Do I think they'll do it? I mean, maybe performance will dictate it. If he does show that he can be kind of a lockdown kind of man type of guy,
Yeah. I mean, I'm not holding my breath, but I wouldn't be against the idea.
As far as the wrong, square pegs round hole, look, I don't think wearing the dot, not wearing the green dot's going to matter one iota. If they thought that would have mattered with him, they would have ripped that thing off of him a long time ago, I think. But
who will wear the green dot, though? Because Miles Jack has said he doesn't like wearing it. Like, no one likes to wear it.
I don't care. Here it is, Miles.
Right.
Just communicate it throughout the defense better.
Right.
Don't rely on him being the key communicator. Have you guys like Cameron Sutton and guys that Hayward up front and all. I mean, if there's an iota of a hope of not wearing the green dot makes Bush a little bit of a better player, then why not do that on top of it there? But my bet is that Jack will get it, but we'll see.
Right. If he's going to be your 3-down guy, then he, to me, kind of has to. Although we'll see if they rotate. I mean, I have a feeling they're going to do some dumb stuff in dime packages with like Robert Spillane there, the way they did it last year. So I don't know if Jack will be literally 100% snap guy, but he'll get the most playing time of that top 3.
I mean, even if you rearrange this offensive line like Bryce wants them to do, I don't think it matters one iota.
Yeah, there's something about chairs and Titanics that you could probably reference here.
Right. Let's see. Brett Nile writes in, listening to the podcast a couple of weeks ago, you made a comment about guys who no longer be in the NFL next week. He said, it got me thinking, what does it mean when you were in, what does it mean? Say you were in the NFL, for example, in Major League, does it 40-man or even 25-man roster when you consider to have Major League, blah, blah, blah? What's your threshold for the NFL? Is it 90-man roster in the summer, first day of training camp? Is it making man, Brett, you thinking way too much here about us saying no longer being in the NFL. It's just an expression overall, I think. I mean, I'm not trying to quantify. Does a guy end up being on a 53 man? Just means no longer, here, I guess. I think he's reading way too much into that. What do you mean by no longer in the NFL next week?
I mean, I don't know the exact context.
Literally out of the NFL,
To me, you're in the NFL when you've signed a contract and you're part of a roster in some capacity. With a signed contract, that to me is you're in the NFL.
Okay, does that mean 90-man roster in the offseason? You're in the NFL? I mean, technically, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I would say so. Then if you get released, then you're no longer currently in the league. You're trying to get back in.
I think Brett spent way too many hours maybe thinking about that.
Yeah.
He says, also, I know that neither of you had Kenny Pickett as your top quarterback pre-draft. I think Alex even said he hoped the Steelers would not draft him, thought the ceiling was too low, as I recall, he says. Now I have been patient and let things play out, and now we are at the first marker into the preseason. Just briefly, how has your overall evaluation changed? If it has he been better than you thought? Question mark, more of the same, question mark, etc. Especially, specifically, has your view of his ceiling changed? He said, I would say his stock has gone up based on your tone, but that's what I'm asking. All right. So thoughts on Kenny Pickett. I'll go first on this. How many snaps has he played? How many snaps have I seen Kenny Pickett play? 60 something snaps, right?
Yeah, about that.
All right. How many of those? I will say this, from preseason snap 1 to the last preseason snap, I thought I really, really liked what I saw as far as progression went. I mean, nothing seemed too big for him, but also within that, I mean, you're asking me about 60 something snaps here. I thought that maybe they had plans for him along the way. First was get the ball out quick, shorter passing game. The second time was the 2-minute drill, right? And the ability to push the football down the field a little bit more, but specifically in the middle of the field, get rid of the football and staring down the blitz. Yeah, I think he passed that test. And the third test was more a little bit of all of it, push the football down the field a little bit more there. I thought he passed with flying colors from the 60 something snaps that we saw him play. However, I mean, Brett, you seriously can't be asking me, have I, off a preseason game of what I've seen, to make a long-term projection here. And I'm just not going to, I will say this, what he did in the preseason has me quite intrigued to see more of him as soon as possible, potentially in 2022, so I can get a more extended thought on him. I'm not going to give you a long-term evaluation of what this kid is and isn't off of 60 plays.
Yeah, I'm basically with you, even though watching him throughout the entire camp. I mean, do I feel better about the pick now than I did back then? Sure, a little bit, but there's a long ways to go. We're still just getting started in the grand scheme of things.
We've got a lot to learn about him. To learn about him.
Right. And, we'll see how it goes. That story, give it at least a year. I don't think it needs to take 5 years for us to evaluate those things, but at least, a year, and probably for this class, maybe 2, because a lot of these guys, Pickett included, may not play much this year. So it's all kind of wait and see mode there. I mean, the things that Pickett's done well are generally the things I thought that he did well at Pitt in terms of accuracy, ball placement, composure, poise, those kinds of things. My question was just always, what is that ceiling? Are there enough plays out of structure? The way that you watch Josh Allen make some unbelievable, plays on the run last night. So that was the concern with me. And that's the
I had arm strength question. I still kind of, I want to see him throw the football down the field, man, and I think he's going to have to be able to do that to succeed at the NFL level. I mean, what he's done so far in preseason has been fine, fantastic. I have no issue with what he's done so far, but I think on a game end, look, it was processing with him, in my opinion. It was arm strength and how many, like you said, how many out of system plays can he make? Because you got to be able to some degree, extend plays in the NFL.
Right. I mean, obviously he's mobile, and I think he will do that to some extent. But how high is that ceiling? Can he compete on the elite of the elite? That's going to be the question ultimately. But again, what Pickett's done well, it's been impressive to see it happen so early and him progress so quickly in terms of just preseason action. But I'm not necessarily shocked by him being accurate or poised, because those were the things I highlighted, the things I thought he did really well during his time at Pitt.
I mean, other than really the one 4th down sack that he was pretty flawless during the preseason, quite honestly.
Yeah, it's hard to be better than Pickett was this summer.
David Rickards writes in, gents, I agree last year if the Steelers won in Buffalo, it would be either best Tomlin regular season win or honorable mention. I think this week might top it if it pulled off. He says, it'll take a block kick or something crazy, just like 2021 week 1. But Tomlin against the spread figures don't lie. He says, would you agree that this game would similarly be among his best? He says, I think the work the front office did with the front seven couldn't make it a different scene than last year, but but he says, I'm an optimist. I'm taking the 6.5 if I'm betting, especially if Deontay and Chooks play. Look, I think I even said ahead of that game, even though we both picked the Bills to win, if they came away with a win there, it would go down as, easily the Steelers' best week 1 game of all time for Tomlin, and maybe one of the most impressive wins of Tomlin's career. And they did it, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm with Dave here. If they win this game in week 1 on the road in Cincinnati with this team, I think that goes in up into maybe the top. That might be the best regular season win of Mike Tomlin's career.
Yeah, I have to go back and try to think about all the other week 1 games. Did they beat Atlanta the one year that were Mendenhall overtime touchdown? Was that a week 1 game?
I believe so. Yeah.
But I think it's this. Putting all that aside, like just to give my hot takey answer, yeah, I think it probably would be his best week 1 win to have that upset with all the change against the AFC champs where the Bengals are to do that to break this losing streak you've had to Cincinnati to get some revenge. It would be a massive way to start. It has to continue. You had a week 1 win last year, then you drop the next 3, and that week 1 win feels a lot less thrilling, but it would be a huge way to begin the year.
Yeah, look, I'm not saying you carry Mike Tomlin off the field if they win this one, but I tell you, in the same breath, there will be our email machine will be full with you guys didn't learn your lesson week 1 last year, True. Within all that. But I do think it could quite potentially be termed one of Mike Tomlin's best regular season wins of all time if they win this game, period.
I'm with you.
Paul Brown writes in, Dave and Alex, wish me luck as I head to the jungle this weekend to watch the Steelers hopefully beat the Bengals. He says, my question, what are your thoughts on the Twitter noise of Eric Fisher to the Steelers? He says, personally, I'm not a fan of signing a 31-year-old coming off of a major injury. He had a question for Paul Daner here, but didn't get to it. Growing up a Cincinnati area, he says, I've been reading Paul's content since he was with the Cincinnati Enquirer and always loved his take on Cincinnati sports. I agree. I think Paul does a great job. He says, what's his take on possibly moving on from Jesse Bates for their first round pick, Dak? So I think in so many words, you asked him that, right, Alex? Yeah.
So Paul basically said that Bates is gone after this year.
Right. So as far as the noise about Eric Fisher to the Steelers, that's Bleacher Report level stuff, I think, still at this point. Could they get to the point where Eric Fisher looks attractive to him coming off of a major injury at 31? I suppose, but I think it would take an injury. I think they're done right now up until this point. Have I mentioned the fact that the Steelers restructured the contract of one TJ Watt, and that the Steelers have censored? Where's my victory lap flag at?
Yeah,
here?
You took it Wednesday.
I did take it Wednesday.
We talked about it Wednesday.
Was the Watt restructure wasn't done at that time, was it?
I think it was. I think we talked about it, didn't we?
I don't think so. Or did
I remember? No, we talked about it. I'm pretty sure.
Okay. Well, they restructured Watt's contract. They're going into the season with damn near $9 million. So in cap space, and I would expect that to kind of be the what they. In other words, I don't think anything's going to happen anytime soon here.
We discussed it Wednesday. It's in the headline of the podcast, Watt restructure.
Okay.
So
right.
Yeah, we talked about that. The Fisher stuff, just noise.
Well, tell me how great I am once again, damn it.
You did a great job. You nailed it, and you are 100% aligned in your latest cap update. You did have a new one yesterday.
I balanced to the penny. And that makes me feel really, really good. And I think we already got to Jay Smith talking about the Malik sack numbers, so we're doubling back there. So I think we got through all the emails there, Alex. All right. boy, a lot of content. Tell the people about the content up on Steelers Depot that they can read right now on this Friday.
Yeah, you can check out the scouting reports that myself and Jonathan Heitritter and Josh Carney did previewing the Bengals. Some other good content. Tyler Wise had an article yesterday on Kenny Pickett and the RPOs and his effectiveness there. And then just some other, content about, season preview. And of course, once the game happens and after it's over, we'll be back on Monday to talk about everything and analyze and film rooms and all that kind of fun stuff.
Busy, and thank goodness it's a 1:00 Eastern start, so maybe we'll be able to watch some later night football on Sunday and enjoy the Monday night game as well too. All right, thank you for everybody who has stuck with us throughout all the off season and all like that. And now it's time to get busy in season. A tremendous effort by the crew and all. Just amazes me with the amount of content that they put out daily and weekly and even during the off season there. So we appreciate that. Alex and I, as he stated, will be back on Monday to wrap everything up. Who knows? Maybe it's hard to do a podcast with 4 feet in the mouth, but we will definitely be up for the challenge if that happens. So in the meantime, follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. Like what we do and want to donate, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button up right navigational bar. Also, there's an ad-free version of the site. Find that by going to the ad-free button up right navigational bar of SteelersDepot.com. So until Monday, everybody have a great weekend. And as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.